2 years after humanity had been exiled from galactic civilization, long-range sensors at Nexus Station detected something that should have been impossible. A human fleet was approaching the galaxy core, but these ships were moving faster than anything in known space. They ignored established hyperspace lanes and traveled through regions that alien vessels could not enter. Station Commander Zeth-9 had been in charge of Nexus Station for 30 years. The massive trading hub served as the economic heart of galactic civilization, with thousands of ships arriving and departing every day. He had seen every type of vessel that every species had ever built, but he had never seen anything like the ships that were approaching his station. The human fleet consisted of 20 vessels, but calling them ships seemed inadequate. They were works of art and engineering that defied easy description. Their hulls were made from materials that seemed to absorb and reflect light at the same time, creating optical illusions that hurt to look at directly. They moved through space with a grace that suggested they were not bound by normal physics. When Commander Zeth-9 tried to scan the approaching fleet, his instruments returned readings that made no sense. The ships seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Their mass readings shifted constantly. Their energy signatures matched no known power source in the galactic database. Some of his sensors simply shut down rather than process the impossible data. The first communication from the human fleet was polite and formal. "This is Captain Park Jin-woo of the Earth Federation, requesting docking privileges for diplomatic purposes. We come in peace and wish to address the Galactic Council." Commander Zeth-9 stared at the message for several minutes. The humans were requesting permission like any normal diplomatic mission, but 20 warships hung in space around his station like silent predators. Their weapons were not visible, but every instinct told him these vessels could destroy Nexus Station without effort. The largest human ship was magnificent and terrifying. Its hull stretched over 2 kilometers and was covered in armor that seemed to bend space around itself. Weapon ports were hidden behind panels that could open in microseconds. The bridge section was protected by shields that made the surrounding space shimmer like Water Captain Park. Jin-woo stood on his bridge watching Nexus Station through screens that showed more detail than any alien sensor could provide. His ship, the Incheon, was the flagship of humanity's new fleet. Every system on board used technology that had been developed during the Exile period. The engines could fold space in ways that alien physics claimed were impossible. The weapons could reach through dimensions that other species could not detect. Behind him stood his crew officers who had trained for this moment for 2 years. They wore new Earth Federation uniforms that were black as space with silver insignia that seemed to move and shift in the light. Each officer carried weapons that looked like simple tools but could disable alien technology or alien biology with equal ease. "Permission granted, Commander," Zeth-9 finally replied. "But please understand that your arrival has caused considerable concern. Your ships match no known technology in our databases." Captain Park smiled. "We understand your concern, Commander. Our technology has advanced considerably. During our isolation, we look forward to sharing our discoveries with the galactic community." The docking process fascinated alien observers who watched from every available window. The human ships moved with precision that suggested their pilots could control their vessels at the molecular level. They slid into docking berths designed for much smaller ships without touching the sides. The airlocks sealed with technology that made the station systems look primitive. Ambassador Park So-min walked through Nexus Station's corridors with the same confidence she had shown during the Exile trial. But now she was not asking for anything. She was delivering an ultimatum. Her diplomatic team included scientists, military advisors, and cultural attaches who represented the new humanity. The Galactic Council chamber had been hastily prepared for an emergency session. Representatives from all major species had arrived within hours of the human fleet's appearance. Many came with military escorts, and advanced scanning equipment, hoping to understand how human technology had advanced so dramatically. When Ambassador Park entered the chamber, the reaction was immediate. Several alien species changed colors that indicated fear, confusion, or amazement. The architect's 12 arms trembled slightly as it recognized the human diplomat who had walked out 2 years ago with her head held high. The chamber fell silent as Park approached the speaker's platform. Her footsteps echoed clearly in the vast space, but now the sound carried authority instead of defiance. She was no longer speaking for a species begging for acceptance. She was speaking for a civilization that had transcended the need for approval, members of the Galactic Council. She began, her voice carrying clearly to every corner of the chamber. 2 years ago, you voted to exile humanity from galactic civilization. You believed we were too dangerous, too unpredictable, and too different to remain among you. Today we return, not to ask for readmission, but to inform you of changes in galactic politics. The holographic displays around the chamber showed star maps that made alien astronomers gasp with shock. In the 2 years since exile, humanity had established colonies and systems that other species considered unreachable worlds too close to black holes, planets with gravity that should crush any known life form, asteroid fields so dense that navigation was theoretically impossible. Human settlements now existed in over 200 star systems, most of which were in regions that alien ships could not reach. The colonies were not desperate outposts struggling to survive. They were thriving communities with populations in the millions, each one equipped with technology that surpassed anything in galactic civilization. But more shocking than the expansion was the nature of human technology. The displays showed ships traveling through dimensional spaces that alien science claimed did not exist. Weapons that could affect matter at the quantum-level defensive systems that existed in multiple realities simultaneously. How the architect finally asked its voice smaller and less certain than before. How did you achieve technological advancement that surpasses our combined knowledge in just 2 years? Ambassador Park's smile was sharp but not cruel. You taught us the most valuable lesson possible, she replied. You showed us that we were fundamentally different from every other species in the galaxy. So we stopped trying to think like you and started thinking like ourselves. The demonstration that followed was both simple and terrifying. A human ship no larger than a patrol craft approached a dead asteroid in the outer system. One beam of impossible light touched the asteroid's surface. Within minutes, the lifeless rock began to glow with internal fire. Nuclear fusion had been ignited in its core, creating a miniature star. The message was unmistakable. Humanity could create new suns or destroy existing ones. They had mastered forces that alien civilizations had spent millennia trying to understand. Their exile had not weakened them. It had freed them to become something beyond galactic comprehension. The trade routes that humanity had been banned from using were now protected by human defensive platforms. Any alien vessel that approached Sol system space would be asked politely to leave. Once, if they refused, they would be escorted out by ships that could travel faster than their emergency communications. Several alien species immediately requested private meetings with the human delegation. The warrior races who had supported exile now wanted to learn from humanity. The peaceful species who had felt guilty about the vote wanted to re-establish friendship. The economic powerhouses who controlled galactic trade realized they needed human goods and services, but humanity was no longer interested in joining someone else's civilization. They had built their own Captain Park. Jin Wu received requests from dozens of alien governments for technology exchanges, military alliances, and trade agreements. His response to each one was the same. Humanity appreciates your interest. We will consider partnerships between equals, but we will no longer accept subordinate status in any relationship. The most significant change was in how aliens looked at humans. Before the exile, they had seen humanity as dangerous children who needed guidance and control. Now they saw them as equals who commanded respect through demonstrated ability. The fear was still there, but it was mixed with admiration and curiosity. Commander Zeth 9 watched the human fleet prepare to depart after just 3 days at his station. The diplomatic mission had been completed with efficiency. That amazed him. Ambassador Park had delivered her message, answered questions from council members, and established the new reality of galactic politics. As the human ships undocked from Nexus Station, their engines created light patterns that were beautiful and impossible. The vessels moved away from the station in perfect formation, then simply vanished from normal space. They had returned to whatever dimensional realm they used for faster than light. Travel the galaxy would never be the same. Humanity had returned from exile stronger, more advanced, and more confident than anyone had imagined possible. The species that had been voted out for being too dangerous had become too powerful to ignore. Galactic Council faced a choice. They could try to maintain the old system where established races controlled younger species, but humanity had proven that system was obsolete, or they could adapt to a new. The emergency session of the Galactic Council lasted 3 days without interruption. Representatives from every major species brought their most senior diplomats, military advisors, and scientists. The debate was heated and desperate as alien civilizations tried to understand how the balance of galactic power had shifted so dramatically. The architect looked older and more fragile than anyone had ever seen it. Its crystal head had developed cracks that spoke of stress and uncertainty. For thousands of years, it had guided galactic civilization according to established patterns. Now those patterns were useless against a species that operated beyond known limitations. Some species demanded immediate military action against humanity. The Claw Warriors, with their natural armor and battle instincts, insisted that humans must be stopped before they became too powerful to defeat the Silicon Collective. With their networked intelligence, calculated that humanity represented an existential threat to established order, but other species urged caution. The Lotus people reminded everyone that humans had never initiated unprovoked attacks during their 50 years in galactic civilization. The deep swimmers who lived in the dark oceans of gas giant moons pointed out that human technology could probably detect and destroy any military force sent against them. The debate continued through multiple day and night cycles, while long-range sensors tracked human activities throughout their expanded territory. The data was disturbing. Human colonies were appearing in star systems that had been surveyed and marked as uninhabitable. Their ships were traveling through regions of space where gravitational forces should tear apart any known vessel fleet. Admiral Kim Da-yoon received the Council's official message while standing on the bridge of her flagship. The human fleet had grown to over 1,000 vessels, each one incorporating technology that made alien scientists weep with envy. Her ship, the Incheon, was a floating city with research laboratories, manufacturing facilities, and living spaces for 50,000 people. The Council's message was both desperate and hopeful, an official invitation for humanity to rejoin galactic civilization. As a full member with voting rights and representation equal to any other species, all trade restrictions would be lifted. All previous judgments would be considered void. Humanity would be welcomed back with full honors and diplomatic immunity. Admiral Kim read the message twice, then composed her response in careful diplomatic language. No, thank you. The refusal shocked every government in the galaxy. They had expected demands for reparations, formal apologies, or political concessions. Instead, humanity offered something that no species had ever proposed before: a partnership between genuinely equal civilizations. Human-controlled space would remain independent with its own laws. Government and military Earth Federation territory would be clearly marked and respected by all species, but trade and cultural exchange would resume under completely new terms. No species would have authority over any other. No council would vote to exile member civilizations. No majority could impose its will on dissenting minorities. The first species to accept the new arrangement were the Lotus people. Their peaceful nature had made them natural allies to humanity, and they had suffered economically during the exile. Their ambassador arrived at Earth within days of Admiral Kim's offer, accompanied by trade ships loaded with goods that humans had missed. The Lotus people were amazed by what they found in the Sol system. Earth was surrounded by space habitats that housed billions of humans in comfort and beauty. The asteroid belt had been transformed into an industrial complex that could manufacture anything from medical equipment to starship engines. Mars had cities under protective domes where human families lived and worked in environments that replicated Earth conditions. But the most impressive development was on Europa, where human engineers had built research facilities under the ice that were larger and more advanced than anything in galactic civilization. Scientists from dozens of worlds worked alongside human researchers, developing technologies that neither species could have created. A loan trade between humans and Lotus, people resumed immediately, but it was different from the old galactic system. Instead of following established trade routes and paying fees to council authorities, human and Lotus ships traveled directly between their systems using navigation methods that other species could not understand. More surprising was the response from the galaxy's warrior races. The Claw Warriors and Crystal Shapers had initially supported Exile, believing humans were too weak for true conflict. Now they sent formal requests for military exchanges, hoping to learn from the species that had turned isolation into strength. Captain Lim Soo-jin commanded the first human exploration vessel to leave the local galactic arm in 50 years. Her mission was to discover what lay beyond the edges of known space. The aliens had spent thousands of years mapping their territory, but humanity had learned to think in dimensions they could not imagine. Her ship, the Busan Explorer, carried technology that would have been considered magic just years before quantum drives that moved through folded space shields that existed in multiple realities. Simultaneously, weapons that could reach through time itself, communication systems that worked instantly across unlimited distances. The aliens who observed her departure were astounded. The ship simply faded from normal space without entering any known hyperspace lane. Sensors lost track of it completely, as if it had never existed. But within hours, long-range communications confirmed that the Busan Explorer had reached the galactic rim 30,000 light-years away. Other human exploration ships followed, using different routes and different methods. Some traveled through dimensional spaces that alien mathematics insisted were impossible. Others used quantum tunneling effects to appear instantly at distant locations. A few seemed to move backward through time to reach their destinations before they had departed. Each expedition returned with reports that expanded galactic understanding of the universe. Human explorers found civilizations that had never been contacted by the Galactic Council. They discovered planets with life forms that had evolved along completely different paths. They mapped regions of space where the fundamental forces of physics operated differently. But most importantly, they found evidence that the galaxy was much larger and more complex than anyone had realized, the mapped regions that all species considered to. Captain Lee Min-ho had been flying cargo ships between human colonies and alien worlds for 15 years. He knew every trade route, every fuel station, and every customs checkpoint in 3 spiral arms of the galaxy. His ship, the Sol Star, was bold but reliable, with cargo bays big enough to carry mining equipment or enough food to feed a small city. Now he was part of something he never thought he would see. The largest evacuation in human history. 3 billion humans lived on colonies, scattered across the galaxy. Some had been born in space and never seen Earth. Others had lived on alien worlds so long they called those places home. Children played in the red dirt of desert planets or swam in the purple oceans of water worlds. They spoke alien languages as easily as human ones and had alien friends. All of them had to come home. Lee stood on the bridge of his ship, watching the colony on Kepler 442b through his main screen. The planet looked beautiful with its blue-green, continents and white clouds swirling around the poles. 2 million humans had spent 20 years turning empty desert into farmland that could feed 10 million people. Cities with tall buildings and underground tunnels stretched for hundreds of kilometers. Now it all had to be abandoned. Colony Administrator Choi Yu-jin was the toughest person Lee had ever met. She had organized the building of 3 major cities, fought off alien raiders during the resource wars, and survived 2 different plague outbreaks. Nothing scared her except maybe the job she had to do now. Get 2 million people off the planet in 30 days. The spaceport looked like controlled chaos. Thousands of people stood in long lines with their belongings packed in containers and bags. Families argued about what to take and what to leave behind. Children cried because they had to abandon their pets or their favorite toys. Adults cried because they had to abandon their homes, their jobs, and their dreams, but nobody panicked. That was the thing about humans that always surprised aliens. When things got really bad, humans got really organized. Lee watched families help each other load heavy containers. Rich people shared their private ships with poor people who had nowhere to go. Scientists deleted years of research rather than leave it for aliens to steal artists, carefully packed paintings and sculptures and music that told the story of human life on alien worlds. The colony had its own defense force, led by Colonel Jang Woo-sung. He was a big man with scars on his face from fighting space pirates. His soldiers were helping with the evacuation, but they were also doing something else. They were destroying everything humans had built that they could not take. With them, fusion power plants that had taken 10 years to build were being taken apart piece by piece. Mining equipment that could crack open asteroids was loaded onto cargo ships. Factory robots that could build anything from furniture to spaceships were packed in protective containers. The aliens thought humans would just run away and leave everything behind. They were wrong. Every bolt, every wire, every computer chip, every piece of technology that human minds had created was going home. The aliens wanted Earth gone, but they would not get to keep human inventions. Lee watched Colonel Jang personally blow up a research facility where humans had been working on new medical treatments. The explosion lit up the sky like a second sun. Other evacuation. Ships arrived every few hours. Some were big passenger liners that could carry 50,000 people. Others were tiny family ships that held maybe 20. The Earth government had sent every vessel they could find: cargo haulers, tourist boats, military, transports, and even alien ships whose crews were willing to help. The alien traffic controllers tried to slow things down. They demanded extra paperwork. They insisted on safety inspections that took hours. They claimed the evacuation ships were dangerous and might crash into the space station, but humans had been flying in space for 200 years. They knew how to navigate without alien help. Lee watched Administrator Choi coordinate the whole operation from her command center. She had screens showing every ship, every launch pad, and every group of evacuees. Her voice stayed calm even when problems came up. Ships broke down, launch pads got damaged, storms made landing dangerous, but she kept solving each problem and moving people toward home. Some of the saddest moments happened when humans had to say goodbye to their alien friends. The Lotus people came to the spaceport to see humans off. They changed colors to show how sad they were and gave gifts of beautiful crystal flowers that would never die. A few other alien species came too. Mostly individuals who had worked with humans and learned to respect them. But most aliens stayed away. They watched from a distance as humanity packed up and left. Some looked curious. Others looked relieved. A few looked worried, like they were starting to understand they might have made a mistake. The evacuation ships left Kepler 442b every few hours. Their engines lit up the sky as they climbed toward space. Each ship carried thousands of people along with everything they could pack. Lee watched them disappear into hyperspace heading for Earth. He felt proud and sad at the same time. On the last day, Administrator Choi stood in her empty office, looking out at the city she had helped build. The streets were empty now. The buildings were dark. All the humans were gone except for her and a few technicians who were finishing the final shutdown procedures. She activated a special program that made Lee stare in amazement. Every human built structure on the planet started to dissolve. The smart matter construction that humans used began breaking down into basic elements. Buildings melted, roads disappeared. Even the terraforming equipment that had created the farms turned back into raw materials. Within 6 hours, there was no sign humans had ever lived on Kepler 442b. The planet looked exactly like it had when the first colonists arrived 20 years ago. Red desert stretched to the horizons under an empty sky. Nothing remained except the natural landscape. Choi boarded the last shuttle with a small bag containing photos and personal items. She looked back once at the world that had been her home, then turned toward Earth. She did not look sad. She looked determined. Lee watched her shuttle dock with his cargo ship and welcomed her aboard. She nodded to him and said, "Let me know when we reach Earth space. Captain, I want to see what home looks like now." The Soul Star was one of the last ships to leave Kepler 442b. Lee set course for Earth, along with hundreds of other vessels carrying the final evacuees. As they entered hyperspace, he thought about what they were all heading toward. Earth was about to receive 3 billion colonists. All the humans who had spread across the galaxy were coming home to a planet that had not seen this many people since the Great Expansion began. The cities would be crowded. The resources would be stretched. Everyone would have to work together to make it work. But Lee was not. Worried humans were good at making impossible things work. They had turned hostile alien worlds into homes. They had built trade networks across thousands of light years. They had survived wars and plagues and natural disasters. Now they would have to survive freedom. And Lee thought that might be the easiest challenge they had ever faced, as the Soul Star flew through hyperspace toward Earth. Lee smiled. He was going home. And for the first time in his life, home was going to be a place where humans did not have to ask permission to be themselves. Dr. Song Hye-jin had always been called crazy by her fellow scientists. While everyone else studied alien technology and tried to copy their methods, she insisted on developing purely human innovations. Her laboratory was buried 3 kilometers, under Seoul, hidden from alien satellites and protected by the strongest security systems Earth could build. Now everyone called her a genius. For 20 years, she had been working on projects that other scientists said were impossible. She designed engines that did not need alien fuel crystals. She created computers that thought more like human brains than alien processors. She built weapons that used principles no other species had discovered. The Exile order had given her exactly what she needed: unlimited funding and no alien oversight. Her assistant researcher, Bae Ki-tae, ran into the lab with excitement. Showing on his face, Dr. Song, the quantum tunneling tests worked. The energy readings are beyond anything we predicted. We can actually fold space without using hyperspace lanes. Song looked at the data on her screens and felt her heart race. The numbers were extraordinary. Without alien computational matrices limiting their thinking, human scientists had begun making breakthrough after breakthrough. The isolation was forcing them to innovate in ways they never had before. Above ground, the world was changing in ways that amazed everyone. Earth had received 3 billion colonists in just 30 days, but instead of causing chaos, it had triggered the greatest industrial revolution in human history. The returnees brought knowledge and experience from dozens of different worlds. They knew how to build in zero gravity, how to mine asteroids, how to grow food in hostile environments. Prime Minister Kang So-young stood before the Global Assembly in Geneva, addressing representatives from every nation on Earth. The massive hall was packed with people who had never been in the same room before, colonists from the ice. World of Titan 7 sat next to farmers from the desert planet Kepler 442b. Scientists who had worked on gas giant platforms shared ideas with engineers who had built cities under alien oceans. "We are no longer a single-planet civilization," Kang announced. "Earth is now the capital of an interplanetary nation that includes every human who has ever lived among the stars. We have knowledge and experience that no single world could provide. We have technologies that aliens never shared with us because we developed them ourselves." The assembly cheered, but Kang was not finished. "And we have something else that no other species in the galaxy possesses. We have the ability to think beyond the limitations that alien society placed on us. Construction. Projects began that made alien observers nervous. Massive space habitats bloomed around Earth like metal flowers. Each one was designed to house millions of people, but they were not just homes. They were factories, research centers, and military bases that used human engineering principles instead of alien designs. The habitats looked beautiful from space with gardens and lakes visible through transparent walls. But hidden inside their structures were manufacturing facilities that could build anything from medical equipment to starship engines. Each habitat was completely self-sufficient, with its own power generation, food production, and defense systems. Admiral Yoon Tae-young supervised the transformation of Earth's space fleet. The returning colonists had brought thousands of ships with them: cargo haulers, passenger transports, mining vessels, and even a few military craft that had been used to defend human colonies. But Yoon was not interested in their original designs. He ordered every ship to be completely rebuilt. The hull stayed the same, so alien spies would not notice any changes, but inside everything was different. Human engineers installed new engines that could travel faster than anything in the galaxy. They added weapons that used energy types aliens had never encountered. They built shields that could deflect attacks from multiple directions at the same time. Dr. Song's laboratory became the heart of Earth's military research. Her teams worked on projects with code, names like Prometheus and Pandora's Box. They developed weapons that could destroy planets. They created defenses that could protect entire star systems. They built communication systems that could reach across the galaxy instantly. But the most important work was happening in secret bases scattered throughout the solar system. Mining operations on asteroids were actually weapons factories. The research station on Europa was developing new types of spacecraft. The colonies on Mars were training the largest military force in human history. What amazed Dr. Song most was how fast everything was happening. Human creativity had been held back for decades by the need to follow alien rules and use alien technology. Now that those limitations were gone, human minds were free to explore possibilities that no one had ever imagined. The breakthrough that changed everything came from an unexpected source. A group of children from the Kepler 442b colony were playing with mathematics problems in their school when they discovered something that made their teacher call Dr. Song immediately. The children had figured out how to travel through dimensions that aliens could not detect. Within weeks, Dr. Song had adult scientists working on the children's discovery. They found that human brains could visualize geometric spaces that alien minds could not comprehend. It was like humans could see colors that other species were blind to. This gave them access to regions of space that no other civilization knew existed. The first test flight was conducted in absolute secrecy. A small research vessel disappeared from normal space for exactly 10 minutes. When it returned, the crew reported that they had traveled to the far side of the galaxy. The journey that would have taken months using alien hyperspace lanes had been completed in minutes using human dimensional navigation. Admiral Yoon immediately ordered the construction of an entire fleet using this new technology. The ships would look normal from outside, but they would be capable of traveling anywhere in the galaxy faster than any alien vessel could follow. They would be invisible to alien sensors and able to appear anywhere without warning. Meanwhile, other human scientists were working on projects that would have been impossible under alien oversight terraforming technology that could turn dead worlds into garden planets in years instead of decades. Medical treatments that could extend human life and enhance human abilities. Communication systems that worked instantly across unlimited distances. The most shocking development came from monitoring alien communications. Human intelligence services had been listening to alien broadcasts for months. They discovered that several species in the Galactic Council were beginning to have second thoughts about the Exile decision. The peaceful Lotus people were reporting strange energy readings from the Sol system. The readings matched no known technology in alien databases. Few other species had detected unusual gravitational anomalies that suggested humans were doing something unprecedented in their home system. Some alien governments were starting to worry. They had expected humanity to collapse into civil war or economic disaster without galactic trade and support. Instead, Earth seemed to be thriving in ways that defied explanation. Dr. Song smiled as she read the intelligence reports. The aliens thought they knew what humans were capable of. They had studied human technology for 50 years. They had observed human behavior in carefully controlled situations. They believed they understood human limitations. They were about to discover how completely wrong they were 2 years after the Exile human preparations were complete. The solar system had been transformed into a fortress that could defend itself against any threat. Earth was surrounded by defensive platforms that used weapons aliens had never imagined. The asteroid belt had been turned into the largest industrial complex in known space. The outer planets hosted military bases that could launch attacks across interstellar distances. But more importantly, humanity had developed the ability to travel to parts of the galaxy that aliens considered unreachable. They could establish colonies on worlds that other species thought were impossible to inhabit. They could explore regions of space where alien ships could not survive. The galaxy had tried to cage humanity by cutting them off from everything beyond their home system. Instead, they had created a species that no longer needed anyone else's permission to reach for the stars. Dr. Song stood in her laboratory, looking at star charts that showed human expansion possibilities. The maps included systems that alien astronomers had marked as forbidden or impossible. Human science had proven that nothing was truly impossible for minds that refused to accept limitations. It was time to show the galaxy what humanity had become during their exile. It was time to return to the stars, not as supplicants asking for acceptance, but as equals demanding respect. The aliens had voted to exile Earth, thinking they were removing a dangerous child from their civilized society. They were about to meet the adults that humanity had grown into during their isolation. Captain Kim Tae-ho stood in the huge crystal room where the Galactic Council made their big decisions. The room was so large that he felt like a tiny ant, surrounded by giant creatures from different worlds. Some aliens looked like walking trees. With silver bark, others had 6 arms and eyes that glowed blue in the dark. A few species floated in the air inside bubble suits filled with strange gases. The trial had been going on for 3 days, and Kim was tired, but he kept his back straight. His Earth uniform looked plain next to all the fancy alien clothes, but he wore it with pride. Behind him stood 11 other humans from Earth. They were diplomats, scientists, and military officers who had come to speak for all of humanity. Ambassador Park So-min was the smartest person Kim knew. She had learned 12 alien languages and could argue with anyone about politics or science. Right now she looked calm, but Kim could see her hands were shaking just a little bit. The other humans tried to look brave, too. But everyone knew this trial would decide if Earth stayed part of the galaxy or got kicked out forever. The alien creatures around them made weird noises. Some sounded like metal scraping against stone. Others made music that hurt. Human ears. A few species talked by changing the colors of their skin. Kim had been in space for 10 years, but he still found alien sounds. Creepy at the front of the room sat the most important being in the galaxy. Everyone called it the Architect, but nobody knew its real name. It was older than human civilization and had helped create the rules that all species had to follow. The architect had 12 arms and a head that looked like it was made from living crystal. When it spoke, the whole room went quiet. The translation machine in Kim's ear started working, and he heard the architect's voice. It sounded like thunder rolling across mountains, but the words were clear and terrible. Earth was guilty of being too violent, too dangerous, and too unpredictable to stay in galactic society. The vote was 46 species against Earth, and only one species supporting them. Kim felt his heart sink. The Lotus people were the only ones who voted to help humanity. They were peaceful, plant-like beings who had been friends with Earth since first contact. Their ambassador looked sad and kept changing colors from green to purple, which meant they felt sorry and helpless. The architect raised all 12 arms, and the room became silent again. It announced that humanity had 30 standard days to pack up everything and go home. All human colonies had to be abandoned. All human spaceships had to return to Earth. All trade agreements were canceled. Earth would be cut off from Galactic. Internet from star maps. From medical exchanges, from everything that connected them to the rest of the galaxy. Earth would become a prison planet. The solar system would be marked as forbidden territory. No alien ship would ever visit again. No human ship would be allowed to leave. Humanity would be alone among the stars forever. The other species would continue exploring the galaxy, making new discoveries and building wonderful things. While Earth sat in the dark, Kim listened to every word and felt something strange happen inside him. Instead of fear or anger, he felt something that surprised him. Relief, maybe even happiness. The more the architect talked about cutting Earth off from everything, the more Kim realized something important. These aliens thought they were punishing humanity, but they were actually setting them free. For 50 years, humans had tried to fit in with galactic society. They copied alien technology. They followed alien rules. They tried to make alien friends. They changed their behavior to make other species comfortable. Earth had been like a kid trying to impress the popular group at school. But humans were different from every other species in the galaxy. They thought differently. They solved problems differently. They even felt emotions differently. The aliens saw this as dangerous, but Kim was starting to see it as wonderful. When the architect finished speaking, the room stayed quiet. Everyone expected the humans to beg or cry or get angry. They expected Ambassador Park to make desperate speeches asking for another chance. They expected Captain Kim to fall on his knees and promise that humans would behave better. Instead, Kim did something that shocked every being in that massive crystal room. He smiled. Not a fake smile or a nervous smile, but a real genuine smile that came from deep inside him. It was the kind of smile someone makes when they get exactly what they always wanted, but never knew how to ask for. Then he started clapping. The sound echoed strangely. In the huge room, Kim clapped slowly and steadily, like he was congratulating the architect for making the best decision ever. One by one, the other humans joined him. Ambassador Park clapped with tears of joy in her eyes. The diplomats clapped. The scientists clapped. The military officers clapped. Soon, all 12 humans were clapping, and the sound filled the crystal chamber like rolling thunder. The aliens stared in confusion. Their skin changed colors that meant surprise, fear, and bewilderment. A few species made distressed noises that sounded like crying or screaming. Captain Kim stepped forward and spoke in a clear voice that carried to every corner of the room. "Thank you," he said, looking directly at the architect. "You have just given humanity the greatest gift possible. You have given us our freedom." The alien creatures made more confused noises. Some of them started arguing with each other in their strange languages. A few demanded to know what the humans meant. Others wanted to change the vote immediately. But Kim wasn't finished talking. For 50 years, he continued. "We tried to be good little children in your galactic family. We followed your rules. We used your technology. We let you tell us which planets we could live on and which ones were forbidden. We acted like we needed your permission to exist, but now you have told us something wonderful. You have told us that we never needed you at all." Ambassador Park stepped up beside him. "You want us to go home," she said, with a voice full of pride. "Fine. We will go home, and we will build something better than anything you have ever seen. We will explore stars you are afraid to visit. We will solve problems you think are impossible. We will become everything we were meant to be." The 12 humans turned together like they had practiced it their whole lives. They walked toward the exit with their backs straight and their heads high. Their footsteps sounded like a drumbeat on the crystal floor. Behind them, the council chamber exploded in confused chatter and angry arguments. But the humans never looked back. They walked out of that room like they were walking toward the best day of their lives. Some aliens ran after them, shouting questions and demands. The architect called for order. Other species started leaving their seats to argue with each other, but Captain Kim and his team kept walking. They walked through the space station's corridors while aliens stared at them with confusion. They walked too, their shuttle, while security forces watched nervously. They climbed aboard their small Earth ship while the whole galaxy wondered what had just happened. As their shuttle pulled away from the council station, Kim looked back one last time at the massive structure where 46 species had voted to exile humanity. He smiled again and whispered, "Thank you for setting us free." The shuttle turned toward Earth, and the humans began the journey that would change everything. The galaxy thought. They had solved their human problem, but they had no idea what they had just created. 10 years after the exile, Earth had become the most important world in the galaxy. Not through conquest or politics, but through simple excellence. Human universities attracted students from hundreds of species. Human art and music spread across civilizations that had never experienced emotion through beauty. Dr. Song Hae-jin, now director of the Terra Institute, welcomed a group of young alien scientists to her laboratory. They stared in wonder at technology that seemed to operate on principles their species had never discovered. But the real magic wasn't in the machines. It was in the human approach to problems. "We don't just ask how something works," she explained to her students. "We ask why it doesn't work better, and then we fix it." The alien students took careful notes, but she knew they would struggle to truly understand. They had been raised in a galaxy where progress meant following established patterns. Humans had learned to break the patterns entirely. The Galactic Council still existed, but its role had changed. Instead of a ruling body, it had become a forum for cooperation. The old system of established races controlling younger species had crumbled when humanity proved that isolation could breed strength rather than weakness. Ambassador Park So-min, now in her 70s, stood before a gathering of representatives from over 300 species. Many were newcomers to galactic civilization, species that humanity had discovered in their explorations beyond known space. The galaxy was larger and stranger than anyone had imagined. "When you exiled us," she said to the architect, who looked smaller and older than before, "you thought you were removing a threat. Instead, you taught us the most important lesson in the universe. We don't need your approval to be extraordinary. We just need to be ourselves." The human fleet now numbered in the tens of thousands, spread across multiple galaxy arms. They were explorers, traders, teachers, and protectors. Children born on human worlds would grow up knowing that their species had faced rejection and emerged stronger. Captain Kim Tae-ho, now an old man, stood on the bridge of his new ship and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there were wonders that no species had ever imagined. Humanity would find them, understand them, and share them with anyone willing to learn. The galaxy had voted to exile Earth, thinking they were casting out a dangerous child. Instead, they had created something unprecedented, a species that knew its own worth and refused to be diminished by others' limitations. Humanity had walked out with their heads held high, and they would never bow them again.